Ben said, voice low, like he didn't want the walls to hear. I didn't answer. My fingers stayed on the chair back, knuckles white. He turned the laptop so I could see one line highlighted in yellow. Flexible schedule. Approved. My stomach dropped anyway. What's the catch? Ben's eyes held mine. The catch is, your old job just emailed HR asking why we're making exceptions for you. Jenna's Slack popped on my screen at the same time. Don't panic. He's looping. Legal. Right now. Ben didn't blink. So tell me, Maya, do you still want this in writing? The office was already awake in that quiet way some places get, when everyone's working hard but nobody's trying to be seen working hard. Keyboards clicked like light rain. Monitors glowed. The air smelled like over-roasted coffee and the lemon cleaner they used every night. I'd been here long enough to recognize the rhythm. Stand up at 8:30, the queue gets ugly by 10, lunch disappears if you don't guard it, and deploy days make everyone talk a little less. 2 years ago, I couldn't have pictured myself in a building like this, wearing a badge that opened doors instead of being questioned at every turn. Back then, I measured days by what bill was due and what could be pushed one more week. I measured mornings by how fast I could get my daughter dressed and out the door without her tears turning into my guilt. Now I still measured bills. Rent didn't stop just because my life got a little steadier. Daycare didn't become cheaper because I got better at my job. But the panic wasn't sitting in my throat every minute. It lived somewhere lower now. Quieter. Like a bruise you stop touching because you learn it doesn't help. Ben's office wasn't fancy. A small room with a desk, a couple chairs, and a whiteboard that had more arrows than words. He didn't decorate it to look like he loved the company. He decorated it to do his job. He slid his laptop toward me. On the screen was a policy document with my name typed into a line that made my throat go dry. Flexible work arrangement. Approved. Eligible for out-of-office coverage. Yes. Conditions. Notify manager. Maintain ticket SLAs. Remain reachable for escalations. I read it once. Then again, slower, like someone might change the words while I looked. This means, Ben said, if your kid has a doctor appointment or daycare calls, you don't have to disappear and hope nobody notices. You message me. You adjust. You finish what needs finishing. We plan like adults. My mouth open, but nothing came out at first. Not because I didn't have words, because I had too many of them, and most of them were old. Don't trust it. Don't get comfortable. Don't show weakness. Don't ask for anything. Why now? I finally asked, keeping my voice even. Ben shrugged. Because you've been doing the work. Consistently. Because you've proven you don't abuse trust. Because you communicate. And because I'm not interested in losing good people over things life demands. Good people. I stared at the phrase in my head like it was a label that didn't belong to me. He tapped the screen. This is not a gold star. It's a structure. You'll still be held to the same standards. You just won't be punished for being a parent. A laugh almost escaped me. But it wasn't funny. It was relief trying to come out sideways. I won't mess it up, I said too quickly. Ben's eyes narrowed, not angry. Just direct. Don't promise me feelings. Show me patterns. You already have. That was how he talked. No speeches, no inspiration posters, just measurable reality. That was part of why I'd survived here. I signed the acknowledgement with a digital scribble that looked nothing like my real signature. My hands didn't shake, but my pulse was loud enough that I felt it in my ears. When I walked out of his office, Jenna glanced up from her monitor. She'd been my anchor when I first started. Never sugarcoating, never gatekeeping. Just answering questions like it didn't cost her anything to be decent. Her eyebrows lifted. You look like you just got promoted or fired. Which is it? No body, with a mind. Ronan. I sat down slowly. Neither. Jenna waited. Patient. I got flex hours, I said. The words sounded strange out loud, like I was borrowing someone else's life. Jenna's face softened into a grin. Okay, that's huge. That's not new hire treatment. I kept my eyes on my screen, on the ticket queue that didn't care about my emotions. It's conditional. Everything is conditional, Jenna said. Even rent. That made me snort. One quick sound. She wasn't wrong. A Slack notification popped up. New ticket, high impact. Another ping, then another. The day didn't pause to let me absorb anything. It never did. So I did what I always did now. I put the feeling in a corner and moved my hands. I triaged. I reproduced. I documented. I escalated fast when I hit a blocker instead of sitting there trying to be a hero in silence. 2 years ago, I thought asking for help was dangerous. Here, asking for help was responsible. Around 10, my phone buzzed. Daycare. My chest tightened out of habit, but I didn't panic. I put my headset down, stood up, and walked to the quiet corner by the window, where you could see the parking lot and the line of traffic like tiny ants, all of them moving towards someone else's problem. "Hi, this is Maya," I answered. "Miss Carter?" The staff voice was calm, professional. "Just an update, your daughter's doing okay. She asked for you a few times this morning, but she's settled." I exhaled through my nose. "Thank you. Any issues?" "No," she said. "Just wanted to keep you informed." "You still picking up at 5:30? "Yes," I said. "And if anything changes, I'll message." The woman paused, then added, "She's been talking about mommy's new job like it's a superhero thing." My throat tightened, but I kept my voice steady. "Tell her I'm proud of her." When I hung up, I stared out at my car in the lot, my old sedan with rust freckles around the wheel wells, parked between shiny SUVs like it didn't belong. I didn't need it to look good. I needed it to start. That was the kind of standard my life still ran on. Function over pretty. Back at my desk, the ticket queue was mean. I loved it for that, in a way. It didn't flatter me. It didn't punish me for existing. It just demanded competence. At lunch, I ate a peanut butter sandwich from home and counted in my head. Rent in 9 days, daycare draft in 3, electric bill floating somewhere in the middle like a threat. My checking account wasn't empty the way it used to be, but it wasn't safe either. I'd learned to treat extra like a myth. If money showed up, it had a job. I opened my banking app and moved $10 into my savings, the one I'd labeled cushion. $10 wasn't a cushion. It was a sentence that said I was trying. Jenna rolled her chair over. "You okay?" I nodded. "Just budgeting." She made a face. "The most depressing hobby." It keeps the lights on," I said. "Fair?" She replied. Then she leaned in, lowering her voice. "So, flex hours. Does that mean you can leave early if daycare calls?" I kept my tone casual, like it wasn't a miracle. "If I communicate and keep my work solid, yeah." Jenna nodded slowly. "You earned that, Maya. You really did." I didn't know what to do with praise. I still didn't. So I did what I always did. I turned it into action. By 5, I'd closed enough tickets that the queue looked less like a pile of dirty laundry and more like something manageable. Ben walked by, paused behind my chair, and scanned my notes. "Good documentation," he said. "Thanks," I replied. He didn't linger. He didn't micromanage. He just left the words there, like a tool I could pick up later if I needed it. I shut my laptop at 5:15, earlier than I used to allow myself. My hand hovered over my bag strap for half a second, waiting for the guilt. It came soft but familiar, whispering that leaving before everyone else meant I was taking something I didn't deserve. Then I remembered the policy on Ben's screen. Structure, not a favor. I stood up anyway. In the elevator down, my phone buzzed again, this time a notification from my calendar. Monday begins flex schedule. Like it was real. Like someone put it into the system and the system believed me. Outside, cold air hit my cheeks. I got into my car and turned the key. The engine coughed once, then caught. I rested my forehead against the steering wheel for a single breath. Not because I was falling apart, but because I needed to acknowledge something. We were still here. Have you ever gotten good news and still waited for the catch, like life doesn't let you breathe for free? On the drive to daycare, traffic crawled, and the radio played an ad for a discount furniture store. My mind drifted to the apartment. The flickering kitchen bulb I still hadn't replaced. The laundry I'd folded at midnight. The grocery list with more store-brand items than I liked. It drifted to the 2 women waiting at home, my mom, who'd watched me crawl my way back without ever saying, "I told you so," and his mom, who'd shown up with diapers and soup because, in her words, kids don't deserve adult mistakes. Ben's words followed me anyway. You've earned it. At daycare pickup, my daughter ran into my legs like she'd been launched from a cannon, her arms locked around me. No tears today, just warmth and that sweet smell of finger paint and baby soap. Mommy, she yelled into my jacket. I got you, I said, lifting her up. My back twinged, but I didn't care. In the car, she chattered about crackers in a book corner and a teacher who had glitter on her shoes. She fell asleep before we hit the second light, her head tilted, mouth open, the bent ear stuffed bear pressed against her chest. I drove home slower than usual, like if I didn't rush, nothing could break. When I pulled into the lot, I looked up at the dark windows of our apartment building and felt the weight of the thing I hadn't done yet, the part that mattered more than any email. I was going to tell them tonight. I was going to walk into that small kitchen and say, they trust me. They put it in writing, and I already knew what would happen because I'd seen those two women carry me through nights that didn't have a single promise in them. I parked, turned the engine off, and sat there for a second with my daughter breathing softly in the back seat. Then I picked up my phone and typed one line into my notes, like a reminder I couldn't afford to forget. Tell Mom. Tell her. Let it be real. Tell me the truth, my mom said, not looking up from the sink. What truth? I set my keys on the counter like they were fragile. Did they cut your hours? She asked. Because you're smiling, and that scares me. Across the kitchen, his mom Deborah paused with a grocery bag half open. Or did someone do something to you at work? No, I said, and my voice came out steadier than I felt. I pulled my phone from my pocket. They approved my flexible schedule. My mom's hands stopped moving. Deborah's fingers tightened around the plastic. In writing, she asked. Our kitchen was barely a kitchen. It was a narrow strip of linoleum between the living room and a wall that didn't hold heat. The overhead light flickered if you ran the microwave and the toaster at the same time. A stack of mismatched plates leaned in the dish rack like it had given up on being neat. Someone me had taped a list to the fridge. Milk, eggs, cheap cereal, daycare wipes, gas. Under that list were two envelopes held by a magnet shaped like a smiling apple. Rent and electric. My daughter sat on the floor with her knees tucked in, coloring on the back of an old mail flyer. Her stuffed bear with the bent ear was beside her, watching with blank patience. Every few seconds she looked up like she needed to confirm I was still in the room. I hadn't told them yet because part of me didn't trust good news. Part of me believed if I said it out loud, something would come take it back. I unlocked my phone and held it out to my mom first. Like a kid showing a report card. The email header was plain. HR. Subject line. Flexible work arrangement approved. Below it were words that had kept my throat tight all afternoon. Effective date, conditions, manager acknowledgement. My name typed clean and official. My mom wiped her hands on a towel and took the phone with both hands. She read it once, then again, slower. Her face didn't change at first. She'd learned not to react too fast because reacting didn't pay bills. Deborah leaned in, not touching, just close enough to see. She smelled like outside air and laundry soap, the kind of smell you get from someone who still buys the cheap detergent but uses it like it matters. Okay, Deborah whispered like she was afraid the words would break. That's real. My mom swallowed. Her eyes stayed on the screen, but her gaze went unfocused, like she was seeing everything it took to get here. The nights I came home, with my shoulders locked up. The mornings I left before sunrise. The days I pretended I wasn't sick because missing work wasn't an option. The weeks I ate peanut butter and crackers so my daughter could have fruit. I didn't ask for special treatment, I said quickly, like I needed to defend it before they could doubt it. Ben offered it. He said I earned it. My mom looked up. Her eyes were wet without warning. Maya, she said, and my name sounded like a prayer she wasn't sure. Deb, steady. My mom set my phone down and stepped toward me. I braced for a lecture, for a warning, for her to tell me not to get comfortable. For a second, I didn't move. I wasn't good at receiving comfort. I'd spent 2 years turning everything into tasks, fix the problem, pay the bill, hold the line. I didn't know where to put this kind of moment. Then Deborah moved in too. And suddenly I was caught between them. my mom's body trembling like she'd been holding herself together for too long. Deborah's arms firm, careful, like she was afraid to squeeze too hard and scare me away. I felt my face heat up. My eyes burned. I hated crying. Crying made me feel like I was losing control, and control was the only thing that had kept us afloat. But I didn't pull away. My daughter looked up from the floor, startled. "Mommy?" she asked, like she didn't understand why grown-ups were making that sound with their breathing. I sniffed and crouched down to her level. "I'm okay, baby," I said, wiping my face quickly. "Just happy." She studied me for a long second, then scooted closer and pressed her small hand against my knee like she was anchoring me to the room. "Okay," she said, and went back to coloring, satisfied. My mom let go first, stepping back to look at me like she needed to make sure I was still solid. "So," she said, voice shaky, "this means if daycare calls, you can go?" I nodded. "I still have to communicate. I still have to keep my work clean. But I don't have to hide it anymore." Deborah exhaled slowly. "That's what you needed," she said, more to herself than to me. "Not a miracle, just a little room. A little room." That was exactly it. Not a mansion. Not a new life. Just enough space to breathe without being punished for it. My mom turned back to the sink like she didn't want to be seen crying for too long. She started rinsing plates that were already clean, hands moving fast. "I'm making pasta," she said. Like pasta could fix anything. "You need to eat." "I ate," I lied automatically. Deborah glanced at me. She didn't call me out. She just opened the fridge and started organizing what she'd brought: milk, a carton of eggs, a bag of oranges that looked like they came from the discount shelf. She moved quietly, like she belonged here but didn't want to take up too much space. "You didn't have to bring all that," I said. "I know," Deborah replied. "I wanted to." My mom didn't turn around. "She always brings things," she said, voice rough. "She brought diapers when you couldn't buy them. She brought soup when you had the flu." Deborah's jaw tightened. "I brought them because your granddaughter needed them," she said. Then she added, softer, "and because I didn't want my son living like he could just walk away and leave a mess behind him." That was the truth that sat in our kitchen like a third adult. Not loud, just present. I didn't say his name. I didn't need to. Deborah was already thinking about him every time she looked at my daughter. My mom was already thinking about him every time she counted the days between child support payments that didn't come. The conflict wasn't in what they felt. The conflict was in me, how to accept help without turning it into a debt, how to let our lives get easier without believing ease was temporary. While the water boiled, I moved around the kitchen like I was doing inventory. I wiped the counter. I folded the small blanket my daughter had left on the couch. I picked up crayons and put them in the cup we used as a pencil holder. I checked my phone and opened my banking app, not because I needed to in that moment, but because my brain didn't know how to relax without numbers. Rent, due in 9 days. Daycare, draft in 3. Gas, low. I could pay it. Barely, but I could pay it. That was new enough to make me dizzy. My mom's voice came from the stove. "They really said you earned it." I leaned against the counter. "Ben did." Deborah smiled without showing teeth. "Ben's the manager, right? The one who doesn't play games?" "Yeah," I said. "He cares about results, not drama." My mom nodded like she understood that kind of man. "Good," she said, stirring. "Because you don't have time for drama." Dinner was simple. Pasta with a jar of sauce we bought when it was on sale. Deborah cut oranges into wedges and put them on a plate like it was a treat. My daughter ate with both hands and declared the oranges happy, which made my mom laugh for real, a sound I hadn't heard enough in the last few years. Halfway through the meal, my phone buzzed on the table. I didn't pick it up right away. I'd learned not to jump at every sound. But my eyes went to the screen anyway. A banking notification. I swallowed and flipped the phone over, face down, like I could control reality by refusing to look. Deborah noticed. "What is it?" she asked gently. "Nothing," I said too fast. My mom's fork paused midair. She looked at me like she could see right through the word nothing. I turned the phone back over and checked it. Because pretending didn't pay bills either. Deposit scheduled. Child support pending. Not a lot, but scheduled. The word hit me harder than the amount. My mom let out a shaky breath, like she'd been waiting for that kind of proof for a long time. Deborah's eyes closed for a second, like she was bracing for what came next, because she knew her son. She knew what consistency used to cost him. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I quietly stood up, walked to the junk drawer, and pulled out an old envelope. I wrote on it with a pen that barely worked, "Emergency daycare." Then I slid $10 inside from the cash I'd been saving in my wallet for gas. My mom watched me do it. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. After dinner, while my daughter brushed her teeth with my mom's help, Deborah stayed behind in the kitchen with me. The flickering light made her look tired in a way that didn't come from age. It came from regret. "I'm glad you told us," she said. "I didn't want to jinx it," I admitted. Deborah nodded. "I get that." Then she hesitated, like she was choosing her words carefully. "He's been trying," she said. "Not perfect." I kept my eyes on the sink as I rinsed plates. "Trying doesn't raise a child," I said. "No," Deborah agreed. "But patterns do." That word again. Patterns. Like Ben and Jenna were in our kitchen without being here. I dried my hands and turned off the light over the stove. In the living room, my daughter's laughter floated down the hallway. For once, the sound didn't come with a weight behind it. We were still here. And now, maybe, we weren't alone. My phone buzzed again on the table. Deborah glanced at it first. Her face changed just a flicker. I reached for the phone, and before I even saw the screen, my stomach tightened like it remembered every time peace didn't last. It was a text from an unknown number. "Tell Ben to stop digging, or your flex schedule won't matter." If you were Maya, would you show Ben this message, or would you stay quiet and pretend you never saw it? "Miss Carter?" the daycare director said, glancing at the printout in her hand. "Yes," I answered, already gripping my phone too tight. "We need to talk about your daughter." My throat tightened. "Did something happen?" "She's safe," the director said quickly. "But she's been watching the door." "Watching the door how?" "Like she's waiting for someone who isn't supposed to come." The next morning I used my flex schedule for the first time, and it didn't feel like a win. It felt like stepping onto ice and pretending you weren't listening for cracks. I left work early with my laptop bag still warm from my desk, drove straight to the daycare, and sat in the parking lot for a full minute before I got out. The building was the same beige box it always was, with a cheerful mural painted on the side that tried too hard to make the place feel like a second home. The wind cut through the lot, pushing wrappers along the curb. My car's heater had given up sometime last winter, so I'd been living in layers and short breaths. I checked the text again in the car before I walked in. "Tell Ben to stop digging, or your flex schedule won't matter." Unknown number. No name. No threat spelled out, just enough to make my brain fill in the blanks. I didn't reply. I didn't block it. I took a screenshot, then another with the timestamp visible, and saved it in the same folder I kept for anything that might matter later. I didn't do it because I was brave. I did it because I was tired of being surprised. Inside, the daycare smelled like disinfectant and crayons. A little table near the entrance held a sign-in sheet and a bin of tiny lost jackets. The walls were covered in children's art. Crooked houses, purple suns, stick figures with too many fingers. A radio played soft music that didn't belong to any real world. It was the kind of place built to convince you everything was fine. The director, Kim, met me by the office door. She was in her 40s, hair pulled back, posture straight, the kind of professional kindness that didn't waste time. "Thanks for coming in," she said. "Of course," I answered. My voice came out normal. My body didn't feel normal. Kim led me into a small office with a desk, 2 chairs, and a plastic plant that had clearly survived several budget cuts. A folder sat on the desk. My daughter's name was written on the tab. Kim sat first. I sat second. I kept my bag on my lap like a shield. "I want to be clear," she started. "Your daughter is doing well overall. She's smart, she's social, she's bonded with her teacher." I nodded once, tight. "But," Kim continued, "over the last couple of weeks, we've noticed something. She checks the front door repeatedly around pickup time. Sometimes she stands by the window. Sometimes she asks if you're coming early, if you're coming late, if you're coming at all. My mouth went dry. She does that at home too, I admitted. Kim's eyes softened. That's common with kids, especially kids who've had unpredictable schedules. Unpredictable. I hated the word because it sounded like a personality flaw instead of a reality, like I'd chosen chaos. Like I'd enjoyed showing up late with my heart in my mouth because I was stuck at work, because a bus didn't come, because a car wouldn't start, because life didn't care that I was trying. Kim slid the folder closer. Her teacher wrote down a few notes. Nothing alarming, but it's consistent. I glanced at the paper. It wasn't dramatic. It was worse than that. It was small and repetitive. 3:45 p.m. asked, "Mommy coming?" 4:10 p.m. stood by door, watched hallway. 4:25 p.m. asked, "Who's picking me up?" 4:40 p.m. cried when another parent arrived, calmed after reassurance. I stared until the words blurred. "I got approved for a flexible schedule at work," I said suddenly, like I needed her to understand I was fixing it. "I can come on time. I can." Kim raised a hand gently. "This isn't a blame conversation," she said. "This is a support conversation." Support, another word I didn't trust. She leaned forward. "Kids don't always need bigger promises. They need a predictable script." "A script," I repeated. Kim nodded. "A routine she can rely on even when your day changes. A phrase you say every morning. A phrase her teacher says after lunch. A visual schedule. A comfort item that stays with her. And clear pickup rules." Pickup rules. My stomach tightened again, and I didn't know if it was because of her words or because of that text. Kim continued. "Also, I want to review your authorized pickup list." I swallowed. "It's just me," I said, "and my mom." Kim clicked on her computer. "We have you and your mother listed," she confirmed. "We also have Deborah Lawson." "Severn." My eyes snapped up. "Deborah?" Kim turned the screen slightly. "Yes. Added last year." I felt my face heat up. Deborah was his mom. She'd helped me when my daughter was little. Diapers, soup, rides when my car died. I trusted her because she never asked for anything back. But seeing her name on a daycare pickup list made it feel official in a way my nervous system didn't like. "I didn't realize she was still on there," I said, and my voice was careful. Kim didn't react. She just nodded like she'd heard it all before. "Do you want her to remain authorized?" I thought of Deborah in my kitchen last night, the way she'd said kids are innocent, the way she'd looked at my daughter like she was something worth protecting, the way her face had changed when that second buzz came through, like she understood danger as more than a concept. "I want to keep her," I said slowly, "but with a password." Kim's eyebrows lifted. "A password?" "Yes," I said, feeling my spine straighten. "Anyone picking her up needs to say it, and if they don't, you call me." Kim nodded once. "We can do that." My heart beat hard, but my hands stopped trembling. Structure. Not a favor. Not luck. Structure. Kim printed a form and slid it over. "Write the password here," she said, "and we'll make a note in her file. Only you can change it." I picked up the pen. The ink looked cheap. My choice didn't. I wrote something simple that my daughter would remember but no stranger could guess. I handed the paper back. Kim looked at it, then met my eyes. "Good," she said. "Now, about the routine." She walked me through it like she was teaching me a safety drill. Morning drop-off, same goodbye phrase, same sequence. After lunch, teacher reminds her of pickup time. Before nap, the comfort item stays with her. At pickup, staff confirms the password. "What about a photo?" I asked. "Like a schedule on the fridge?" "Perfect," Kim said. "Kids like visuals. And you can give us a copy too. We can hang a small one in her cubby." I nodded, my brain already moving. Paper, marker, tape, a cheap poster board from the dollar store. I could make it tonight. I could make tomorrow predictable. Kim hesitated for the first time, and that hesitation told me there was more. "There's one other thing," she said. My stomach dropped. "What?" She looked down at the folder. Last week, one of our staff noticed a man standing by the sidewalk near the parking lot around pickup time. He didn't come in. He didn't approach any kids. He left after about 10 minutes. Cold ran through my arms. Did you get his name? I asked. No, Kim said. He didn't speak to anyone. We noted it. We watched. When he left, there was nothing to report beyond unusual presence. But I'm telling you because transparency matters. I forced my voice to stay calm. Was he watching the door? Kim's expression stayed neutral, but her eyes were kind. He was looking at the entrance, yes. I felt like the office got smaller. I didn't say the text out loud. I didn't say the word threat. Not yet, but I reached for my phone under the desk and opened the screenshot anyway, just to remind myself I wasn't imagining how fast life could shift. Kim saw my movement. If you have any concerns, she said carefully, we can increase our front desk checks. We can walk your daughter out to your car if you prefer. We can also call security for the complex if someone is lingering. I nodded. I'd like the walkout, I said. For now. Done, she replied. When the meeting ended, Kim walked me out to the hallway. Kids' laughter echoed from the playroom like nothing bad had ever happened in the world. That sound usually made me soften. Today it made me protective. I asked to see my daughter for a minute before I left. Her teacher brought her over with paint on her fingers and a sticker on her shirt. She ran into my legs like I was the safest thing she knew. Mommy, she said, smiling so big it hurt. I crouched down. Hey, baby, I said, brushing hair off her forehead. You okay today? She nodded hard. I made a turtle, she said proudly. Then she lowered her voice like she had a secret. I was looking at the door. Seen. My chest tightened. Why? She shrugged like it was obvious. Because sometimes you come. Sometimes you're late. I wanted to tell her I was never leaving. I wanted to say 1,000 dramatic things that would make me feel like I'd fixed it. Instead, I chose the script. I held her small hands. Listen to me, I said softly. Every day after nap, you'll get your bear. Then you'll wait for mommy. Mommy will come. If mommy is late, mommy will still come. She studied my face like she was reading it for truth. Promise? Don't pee. I didn't make a big promise. I gave her a pattern. Always, I said, even when I'm busy. She smiled, satisfied, and ran back to her classroom without looking over her shoulder. On the way out, I sat in my car again and didn't start the engine right away. I opened my notes app and typed, routine board tonight, password pickup active, walkout request, screenshot threat saved. Then I hovered over one more line and stopped. Tell Ben. My fingers stayed still. Because once I showed Ben that message, it wouldn't just be my fear anymore. It would become a workplace problem. A legal problem. A problem that could blow back onto the one thing I'd fought 2 years to build. Stability. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. This time, it wasn't a sentence. It was a photo. The daycare entrance. From across the street, if you were me, would you finally tell Ben knowing that the moment you do, someone out there might decide to get closer? Don't show anyone, Deborah said the second I opened the door. I froze with my hand still on the deadbolt. What are you talking about? She stepped inside without waiting to be invited, eyes scanning the hallway behind me like she expected someone to be there. The daycare, she said. Someone sent you a photo, didn't they? My stomach dropped. How would you know that? Deborah's voice went tight. Because my son just called me in a panic and asked if the daycare had cameras. She wasn't supposed to be here this early. Deborah usually came on weekends, when she had time and I had the energy to tolerate another adult in my small space. Today was a Thursday. The sky outside was still the color of dirty dishwater. My daughter was in the living room building a crooked tower out of plastic blocks, humming to herself like nothing could touch her. Deborah held 2 grocery bags in her hands, but she wasn't carrying them like someone showing up to help. She was carrying them like an excuse, like she needed something visible to justify walking into my life with that look on her face. I closed the door and turned the lock again. Click. Then the chain. Another click. My hands moved without asking my brain for permission. Deborah, I said quietly. What did he tell you? She set the bags down on the counter, then reached into her coat pocket and pulled out her phone. She didn't hand it to me right away. She stared at the screen for a second like she was deciding how much truth to give me. "He didn't tell me everything," she said finally. "He just said, you got a message. He said someone's messing with you again, and he said the daycare might be involved." My jaw clenched. "The daycare is not involved." Deborah's eyes lifted to mine. "I know. That's not what I meant. I hated that my first instinct was to protect him. Not because I loved him, but because I didn't want my daughter's world to tilt. I didn't want her to hear adults say the wrong things with the wrong tone. I didn't want her to learn fear the way I had by listening through doors." I looked over at my daughter. She was lining up blocks carefully now, tongue out, focused. She didn't look at us. She didn't need to. I walked to the fridge like I was looking for something, just to force my voice to stay calm. "I have it handled," I said. Deborah let out a slow breath. "Handled how?" I turned back. "I met with the daycare director. Password pickup, walk out to the car, routine board. I'm documenting everything." Deborah nodded once. Then again, like she respected the word documenting, like it sounded like a plan instead of panic. "And Ben?" she asked. I didn't answer fast enough. Deborah's lips pressed together. "You haven't told him." I kept my tone flat. "I'm thinking." "That's not thinking," she said, sharper than I'd ever heard her. Then she softened immediately, like she regretted it. "Sorry, Maya, I've been on the other side of men who don't accept consequences, and I know what happens when people start taking pictures of places kids go." Gone. My throat went tight. "It was just a photo." "It 10. Deborah's head shook. "It's never just a photo." I opened my phone and pulled up the image anyway. The daycare entrance. The angle from across the street. Not close enough to see faces. Close enough to feel watched. Deborah's face changed when she saw it. She didn't gasp. She didn't cry. She just got still. "Did you show this to anyone?" she asked. "No." "Good," she said, and then she corrected herself, like she caught her own mistake. "No, actually, not good. But good that it hasn't spread." "Deborah," I said, keeping my voice low. "How did he even know about the photo?" Deborah's eyes flicked toward the living room. "Not here," she murmured. I followed her gaze. My daughter was still humming, still building, still safe for this second. I stepped into the hallway by the bathroom and lowered my voice. "Tell me." Deborah took a breath. "He's been trying to do better," she said, like she was reciting something she'd practiced. "He set up the transfer. He asked me to bring supplies because he didn't want to show up and make you uncomfortable." "That's fine," I said, and meant it. "I appreciate the supplies, but that's not what I asked." Deborah swallowed. "He also said he heard from someone at your old job." My blood went cold. "What?" Deborah's eyes dropped. "He has a friend, somebody he used to work with." The friend said, "Your old manager is still angry, still talking." I didn't move. I didn't blink. I felt the old anger rise up, hot and clean. Not messy, not emotional, just sharp. "Talking about what?" I asked. Deborah's voice got quieter. "About you. About how you don't deserve what you have now. About how the new place doesn't know the truth." My fingers curled into my palm. "He's trying to ruin my job again." Deborah nodded once. "That's what it sounds like." I thought of Ben's office. The policy and writing. The structure that finally gave me breathing room. I thought of my daughter standing by the door at daycare, watching. I thought of the unknown number on my phone, the photo that proved someone had crossed a line. Deborah stepped closer. "Maya," she said, "I didn't come here to scare you. I came here because I don't want you alone in this." "I'm not alone," I said automatically. Deborah's eyes held mine. "You shouldn't have to be strong in silence." I didn't like that phrase. It sounded too close to pity. But Deborah wasn't pitying me. She was offering something practical. She reached into the grocery bags and pulled out a small box. A cheap indoor camera. The kind you can plug in and point at your front door. Nothing fancy. Nothing dramatic. "I'm not asking," she said. "I'm telling you to put this up." I stared at it. I can't afford that. Deborah's jaw tightened. I can. And before you start, this isn't charity. This is me taking responsibility for what my son helped create. My throat burned. He didn't send the photo. Jover. Maybe not, Deborah said. But he used to ignore your fear. That's part of how fear grows. I wanted to argue. I wanted to say I didn't need anything from them. I wanted to keep my pride clean, but my pride didn't matter more than my daughter's safety. I took the camera and set it on the counter without saying thank you yet. Deborah's shoulders dropped slightly, like she'd been holding her breath. Then she reached into her pocket again and pulled out a small folded piece of paper. She unfolded it slowly. What's that? I asked. Deborah didn't look at me when she answered. A message he got last night. I stepped closer. My pulse thudded. Deborah held it out. It was a screenshot printed on paper, like someone wanted to make sure it couldn't be deleted. The same unknown number, and a line of text that made my stomach twist. Tell her to stop. You can't protect her forever. I stared at the words until they stopped being words and became a weight. Deborah's voice went hoarse. My son thinks it's about child support, she said. He thinks if he keeps paying, they'll leave you alone. I looked up sharply. Who is they? Deborah swallowed. I don't know. My daughter's laugh burst out from the living room, bright and careless, like a reminder of what was at stake. I turned my head toward that sound, then back to Deborah. I didn't want this to become a family war. I didn't want cops at my door. I didn't want my manager hearing about threats and deciding I was a liability. But someone had already decided to make me a target. I grabbed my phone and opened the photo again. The daycare entrance, the angle, the distance. Then I opened Ben's last email about my flex schedule. In writing, approved. 2 worlds. One fragile thread between them. One fragile thread between them, Deborah watched me. What are you going to do? She asked. I stared at the screen until my eyes hurt. Then I said the only thing that made sense. I'm telling Ben, I said. Deborah nodded, like she'd been waiting for that sentence. And after that, I thought of my daughter's tiny hand on my knee the night before, anchoring me without knowing it. After that, I said, I'm filing a report. My phone buzzed in my hand like it had been listening. Unknown number again. This time, it wasn't a photo. It was a time, 2 p.m. If you were Maya, would you still walk into that daycare parking lot at pickup time, knowing someone out there might be waiting for you? Before you say anything, Ben said, holding up one hand as soon as my call connected. Tell me you're not alone right now. I'm in my car, I said. Outside daycare. There was a pause. Why are you outside? Daycare. Daycare. Skagen meta program. Why are you outside daycare? Because someone texted me a time, I said. 5:30. Ben's voice dropped. Maya, do not walk in there by yourself. I already told them to do a staff walkout, I said. I'm about to show you everything. You're not showing me later, Ben said. You're showing me now. Share your screen. My hands were steady in a way my stomach wasn't. The steering wheel felt cold under my palms. The heater in my old sedan was still broken, so the air inside smelled like stale coffee in winter. I'd parked in the far corner of the daycare lot where I could see the entrance, the sidewalk, and most of the street beyond the fence. It was still an hour before pickup, but my body didn't care. The text had planted itself in my head like a countdown. 2 p.m. No other words. No emoji. No context. Just a time that matched the exact minute I always walked out holding my daughter's hand. I propped my phone on the dashboard and opened my laptop on the passenger seat, balancing it like a bad idea. The screen share app blinked. Then Ben's face appeared in a small window. His jaw tight, his eyes sharp like he'd already decided this was serious. Okay, he said. Start from the beginning. I didn't start from the beginning of my life. I started from the beginning of the evidence, because evidence didn't shake. I pulled up the first screenshot, the unknown number, the message about digging, then the daycare photo, then the printed screenshot Deborah had brought. Tell her to stop. You can't protect her forever. I showed the timestamps. I showed the folder title I'd labeled with the month and year. Ben didn't interrupt. He watched the way a person watches a car merging into their lane too fast. Calm, but ready to react. When I finished, he exhaled through his nose. You did the right thing saving everything. I swallowed. I didn't tell you earlier because you were afraid. Ben cut in. Not unkindly, just accurately. Afraid we'd see you as a risk. My mouth went tight. Wouldn't you? Ben leaned back in his chair. Behind him, I could see the corner of his office and a whiteboard covered in arrows. Work was still happening around him. He'd chosen to stop anyway. Listen, he said. I'm not going to pretend there isn't risk, but you didn't create this. And we're not going to punish you for being targeted. I stared at the screen like those words might evaporate if I didn't hold them. Here's what we're doing, Ben continued. First, I'm looping HR and legal now. Second, you are not going into that daycare alone. Third, we are documenting this as a threat tied to your employment. Fourth, you're filing a police report. My throat tightened. Police report makes it real. It is real, Ben said. Someone took a photo of a child care facility and sent it to the parent. That's not workplace drama. That's a safety issue. I glanced toward the daycare entrance through my windshield. Parents would start showing up soon. Normal people with normal days. I didn't feel normal. Ben, I said quietly, if the police show up at daycare, they're going to look at me like I'm the problem. Ben's eyes didn't soften, but his voice did. Then we handle that. But your daughter's safety comes before anyone's opinion. My chest burned. Not from emotion, from the effort of not crying. Crying felt like losing control, and I didn't have extra control to lose. He shifted, typing fast. Okay, I've got legal on Teams. I'm adding you. A new call window open. Two names I'd seen on company emails but never heard speak out loud. One was legal counsel, one was HR manager. Their faces appeared like this was just another meeting, except it wasn't. Hi, Maya, HR said. Ben gave us a quick overview. I'm sorry you're dealing with this. I nodded once. Sorry didn't help, but I didn't argue. HR asked me to email the screenshots to a secure company address. Legal asked if I'd responded to the messages. I said no. Legal nodded like that mattered. Do you recognize the number? Legal asked. No. Any prior threats since you joined us? She asked. I hesitated. Not like this. Ben cut in. There's a connection to her previous employer potentially. We're investigating that separately. But right now we treat this as an external threat. Legal's eyes flicked to Ben, then back to me. Maya, you need to file a report with local law enforcement today. If possible, before pickup. My stomach flipped. Before pickup? Yes, she said. The time reference suggests intent. We can't assume it's empty. HR spoke up. Also, we can put you on remote work immediately. Paid. No penalty. For however long we need while this gets handled. The offer landed like something I didn't know how to accept. Paid. No penalty. My brain tried to reject it automatically. I can still work, I said quickly. I don't want to. Ben's expression sharpened. Maya, I stopped talking. He lowered his voice. This is the exact moment you don't try to be a hero. I swallowed. I looked down at my hands. They were clenched around the edge of my laptop like it was the only stable thing in the car. Okay, I said, barely audible. Good, Ben replied. Now, practical steps. Where are you right now? In the daycare lot, I said. Leave the lot, Ben said immediately. Go to a public place with cameras, a gas station, a grocery store, somewhere you can still see your car. Do you have someone with you? I hesitated. Deborah's at my apartment, Ben nodded. Call her. Have her meet you at a public location, and do not go to pickup alone, Legal added. And call the non-emergency police line. Tell them you're receiving threatening messages tied to a child care pickup time. Ask for guidance. If they recommend an officer presence, accept it. My jaw clenched. My pride wanted to fight. My fear wanted to hide. My responsibility didn't let me do either. I'll do it, I said. I ended the call and sat there for a beat, listening to the quiet inside the car and the distant sound of kids playing behind the daycare fence. My phone was still in my hand. The unknown number sat at the top of my messages like a stain. I called Deborah. She answered on the first ring. Maya. I told Ben, I said, and my voice surprised me by sounding calm. I'm filing a report. I need you to meet me somewhere public before pickup. Deborah didn't ask questions. She didn't make it about her. Name the place, she said. The gas station on Elm, I replied. 10 minutes. I'm leaving now, she said. Then her voice softened. You're doing the right thing. I hung up and drove out of the daycare lot, checking my mirrors too often. Every car behind me felt suspicious for half a second. I hated that. I hated what fear did to normal life. But I kept driving anyway. At the gas station, I parked under a bright camera and locked my doors. I called the police non-emergency line with my laptop still open, the screenshots ready. My voice stayed even as I explained. Unknown number, daycare photo, pickup time text, concern for my child's safety. The dispatcher asked if I felt in immediate danger. I said I didn't know. The dispatcher said they could send an officer to meet me and follow me to pickup if needed. Yes, I said, please. When Deborah arrived, she didn't come with more groceries. She came with her coat zipped up and her eyes alert. She pulled into the spot beside me and got out fast. When she opened my passenger door, the cold air rushed in. Show me, she said. I held up my phone. She looked, and her face tightened, the same stillness from yesterday. I hate this, she whispered. So do I said. We waited under the bright lights while time moved like it was doing it on purpose. A patrol car pulled in, lights off, and an officer stepped out. He was younger than I expected, face neutral, hands relaxed in a way that tried to reassure without promising anything. Miss Carter? He asked. Yes. He looked at Deborah. Ma'am, this is my support, I said. She's family. The officer nodded, then focused on me. You have the messages? I handed him my phone. He scrolled carefully, then gave it back. Okay, he said. We'll do a presence at pickup. You'll stay with us. We'll observe the area. I swallowed. Can you walk with us? Yes, he said. And I'm going to advise the daycare to keep all kids inside until we're ready to escort. My throat tightened again, but I nodded. Thank you. Deborah touched my shoulder lightly. You hear that, she murmured. We're not doing this alone. I wanted to say I should be able to handle it alone. I wanted to say I didn't want attention, but the truth was, my daughter mattered more than my comfort. At 5:20, the patrol car rolled back onto the street toward the daycare, and Deborah followed behind me like a second set of eyes. My hands were steady on the wheel, but my pulse kept trying to climb out of my chest. 5:25, 5:28. The daycare came into view, and my stomach twisted so hard it felt like hunger. When we pulled into the lot, I saw parents already lining up, engines idling, faces tired, phones in hands. Normal, ordinary, like the world hadn't cracked open for me. The officer parked near the entrance, stepped out, and scanned the sidewalk. Deborah stayed close to me without crowding, her presence firm. I didn't look at her. I couldn't. I was watching everything, and then I saw it. A man across the street, half hidden by the bus stop shelter, standing too still for someone waiting for a ride. His face was turned toward the daycare entrance. His phone was in his hand. My breath caught. The officer's gaze followed mine. His posture changed subtle, but immediate. Is that him? Deborah whispered. I don't know, I said, and my voice was thin. The man lifted his phone, like he was taking a picture. The officer's hand went up, signaling his partner I hadn't noticed pull in behind us. Ma'am, the officer said quietly, stay behind me. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number. I didn't even have to look to feel the message waiting. Do you think Maya should open that text right now? Or keep her eyes on the man across the street and let the message sit like a loaded weapon? Ma'am, the officer said without looking back. Do you know that man? I don't, I whispered. Has he tried to contact you before? Yes, I said, and my voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. By text. The officer's partner lifted his radio. We've got a possible suspect across the street. Phone out. Watching the entrance. Deborah grabbed my sleeve. Not hard, just enough to keep me anchored. Maya, she murmured, Don't move. I didn't open the text in my pocket. I couldn't afford to let my attention drop for even a second. Across the street, the man stood too still, like he was waiting for the exact moment he'd promised. The bus stop shelter barely covered him. The late afternoon light made everything look flat and ordinary, which somehow made it worse. Threats don't always come with dramatic music. Sometimes they come with a plain hoodie and a phone held chest high. The officer stepped forward, putting his body between me and the street. Parents in the pickup line kept scrolling, sipping coffee, looking tired. A few glanced at the patrol car and then looked away, the way people do when they don't want to become part of someone else's story. Stay right here, the officer told me again. He lifted one hand and started walking toward the curb. The man saw him and shifted, subtle but immediate. He angled his shoulders away like he might walk off, like he might turn into just another guy waiting for a bus. The officer didn't run. He didn't yell. He moved with a calm that felt practiced. Sir, the officer called across the street, voice firm but controlled. Can I talk to you for a second? The man hesitated. His phone dipped. For a fraction of a second, his eyes flicked toward me. Not a long stare. Just a quick check, like confirming I was there. My stomach rolled. Deborah leaned close. Don't look at him, she said, and her voice shook. Look at the door. Look at your kid's door. So I looked at the daycare entrance instead, the glass doors that swung open and closed as staff moved inside. I could see Kim, the director, through the window. Her face tight, her hand pressed to her headset. They were keeping the kids inside, just like the officer asked. My phone buzzed again. The unknown number was determined. It wanted me to look. It wanted my attention. I didn't give it that. Across the street, the officer reached the sidewalk. His partner moved in from a different angle, cutting off the man's path without making it a chase. The man's body went rigid. He said something I couldn't hear. The officer's posture changed, just slightly, still calm, but now fully alert. Hands where I can see them, the officer said. Deborah's grip tightened on my sleeve. I could feel her nails through my coat. Not to hurt me, to keep me from walking forward and doing something stupid, like demanding answers from a stranger who'd already proved he didn't respect boundaries. My daughter didn't know any of this. She was inside, probably stacking blocks, probably waiting for the part of the day that mattered to her. Seeing me. That thought sliced through my fear in a clean line. I lifted my head and caught Kim's eyes through the glass. She gave me a small nod. A message without words. We're with you. Minutes dragged. The officer spoke to the man. The man gestured, then shoved his hands into his pockets until the officer told him not to. The partner stepped closer. One of them took the man's phone, holding it up like evidence. My pulse hammered, but I stayed still. Then the daycare doors opened, just a crack. Kim stepped out, keeping her body half inside, careful. Miss Carter, she called softly. We're ready to bring her out. My knees went weak so suddenly I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because my body had been holding itself like a fist for the last hour and it didn't know how to unclench. Okay, I managed. The officer closest to me shifted back, staying between me and the street. Deborah moved with me, shoulder to shoulder, like she'd decided no one was getting a clean shot at my life ever again. Kim disappeared inside. A few seconds later, my daughter appeared, holding her bent-ear bear tight against her chest, backpack crooked on one shoulder. She looked normal. She looked small. She looked like a kid who deserved a boring day. Her eyes found me and lit up. Mommy! I crouched, arms open, and she launched herself into me. The impact knocked the air out of my lungs and put it back in at the same time. I came, I said into her hair. She nodded against my shoulder like that was the only fact she needed. You came, she repeated, and it sounded like a victory. Kim hovered close. We'll keep the walkout for the next week, she said quietly, and we'll review camera footage. Thank you, I said. And I meant it in a way that felt physical. My daughter pulled back and looked at my face. Why police car? She asked, pointing. I didn't lie. I also didn't dump adult fear into her hands. Just keeping everyone safe, I said. Like seatbelts. She accepted that instantly, because kids understand safety when it's simple. We walked to the car as a small group, me, my daughter, Deborah, and the officer like a weird parade nobody wanted. I buckled my daughter in first, hands careful, voice steady. I gave her Bear to hold and she hugged it like a job. When I closed her door, I finally looked back across the street. The man was standing beside the patrol car now, his shoulders slumped, his jaw working like he was chewing anger. The officer's partner was speaking to him, while another officer, who must have arrived during the walkout, held the man's phone inside an evidence bag. My phone buzzed again. This time, I pulled it out. My thumb hovered, my chest tightened. Deborah watched me, face pale, but she didn't tell me what to do. She treated me like the adult I'd had to become. I opened the message. It was one line. You really thought you could protect her. My hands didn't shake. Not anymore. Because the man was already being handled. Because the message wasn't a prophecy, it was a tantrum. I took a screenshot. I saved it. I forwarded it to Ben and Legal, just like they told me. Then I turned my phone off. Deborah exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for years. Good, she whispered. I got into the driver's seat and started the car. My daughter began talking immediately, telling me about a turtle drawing in snack time and how her teacher said she did a good job waiting. Her voice filled the space between all the things I didn't want to think about. As we pulled out of the lot, the officer tapped on my window. I lowered it. Ma'am, he said, we're going to file the report and request the daycare footage. I can't promise outcomes, but you did the right thing calling. I nodded. Thank you. He paused. Do you have a safe place to go tonight? I thought of my apartment, the flickering kitchen light, the tight hallway, the door I'd locked twice. I thought of my mom and the way her hands shook when she hugged me. I thought of Deborah showing up with a camera and a printed screenshot like she refused to let this be hidden. Yes, I said. I do. When we got home, my mom was waiting by the window like she'd been doing since I was a teenager. The second she saw the car, she was at the door. What happened? She asked, eyes wide. I didn't give her drama. I gave her facts. Police were there, I said. Daycare helped. My mom grabbed my daughter first, kissing her cheek like she needed proof. Then she looked at me, really looked, like she was checking for cracks. Deborah stepped in behind us and held up the small indoor camera box again. We're installing it, she said, not asking. My mom nodded like she didn't care about pride. Install it? She agreed. That night, after my daughter went to sleep, we sat at the kitchen table under the flickering light. The apartment sounded the way apartments always sound. Pipes ticking, someone's TV through the wall, distant footsteps in the hallway. Ordinary noise. The kind you don't appreciate until you realize ordinary is the goal. I wrote down everything while it was fresh. Times, locations, exact wording, the officer's name, the case number. I didn't do it because I wanted to relive it. I did it because I wanted a record that didn't depend on my memory on a bad day. My mom made tea we couldn't really afford, using 2 bags instead of 1 like it was a celebration. Deborah sat across from me, arms folded, eyes tired but steady. You did the right thing, my mom said quietly. Deborah nodded. You didn't try to be tough alone. I stared at the paper, pen in my hand. That used to be my whole identity, being tough alone. Being the one who never needed anything, because needing things felt dangerous. I thought about my flex schedule approval. In writing, I thought about the police officer saying he couldn't promise outcomes. I thought about my daughter trusting that I would come. I didn't feel heroic. I felt exhausted. But under the exhaustion was something new, a structure strong enough to hold us. Before bed, I checked on my daughter. She was sprawled sideways, Bear tucked under her chin, mouth open in that innocent way kids sleep. I stood there for a long moment and let myself breathe, because she was safe tonight, and tonight mattered. I didn't promise her an easy life. I couldn't. I didn't promise myself I'd never be scared again either. I just adjusted the blanket, turned off the hallway light, and locked the door. Lesson. Value by Haupt Rutra. Safety isn't a feeling. It's a plan. A working mom doesn't survive by being silent and strong. She survives by documenting, setting boundaries, and accepting real help when it shows up. And the biggest shift isn't when life stops being hard, it's when you stop carrying it alone. If you were Maya, what would you do next? Keep the flex schedule and stay visible at work, or disappear for a while to feel safe? even if it risks everything you've built.